one thing I noticed at your talk was that it seemed like you had a passion of like digging through museums and restructuring museums, and I was wondering if creating art came from that passion or vice versa. Like, did one come first?
Oh, well, long before I knew that was going to be my passion, I was really intent on being an artist, and what the form was going to be, even after going through art school and some graduate school, I didn't even, I still was formulating my voice, and so the museum stuff happened because it was rolling around in my head, but I really didn't know that any museum would ever let me do what I get to do. So I was, in the early years working with some materials and taking photographs of things that interested me. This is right out of college, how I was working on it, and then working with my various jobs that I had in between, trying to think about what I really wanted to do that really was about me, or not necessarily about me, but my vision of how the world is, or what the world is about, or what I want to add to the world, given there's so much art and so much time has gone by with so much art being made. So that's kind of, so the museum things, that came because someone was interested in seeing what I was doing, which originally was making faux museum spaces in galleries or places like that, and to doing them actually in museums. But always interested in bringing objects together, even outside of museums, and learning from juxtapositions.
Sure, yeah. Something you said really struck a chord with me being a senior right now in college is the, figuring out what you want to do and how you want to make your mark on the world. Yeah, something that's like a burning question in my mind right now, so I appreciate you naming that. Okay, so let's see. Part of my pronunciation of this, but I understand that you have some experience with Pilchuck glass artists.
Yes.
Could you explain a bit more about how that experience informed your work and why glass inspires you so much?
Oh, it's funny because I was invited to Pilchuck, and I didn't have a particular interest in glass. I didn't have a particular interest in any particular material, but I thought, well, that maybe there's something interesting in that for me. And I had friends who had been there. Lorna Simpson and Kiki Smith, both had been there, and it seemed that that might be something interesting for me to do. Try. I mean, I'm open to trying things. I don't have a particular material that I'm wedded to, want to work with. Even then, I was much more conceptually based artist. So I thought, well, why not? Try it out and see if there's any there.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's so cool to hear. In terms of the pieces that we are getting at Western and using glass, since you say like the specific material doesn't inspire you or the glass doesn't inspire you, I guess I'm wondering, like, why did you choose glass for those pieces?
Well, there's a long story, and initially the forms that I make, and I still make them, are just made by glass blowers here in the United States, here in Seattle, who have their hot shops in Seattle. But when I became the representative for the United States at the Venice Biennale, I had glass in my head, if I can put it that way, and so I knew that Murano was there with all the glass blowers and his historic glass, and I immediately thought, well, I should make something with them. And after having been in Venice, spending many months thinking about what I might do and beginning to make connections to do what I wanted to do, I realized that essentially the idea of making a black chandelier became really, really important to me as the emblem and focal point of the whole project that I did in Venice. And because I really enjoyed making works that maybe will be understanding to everyone perhaps, but the local people themselves will have a very specific relationship with the work that I make. And so working with black glass was unusual for them. They never would have done that because it's not historically accurate by any stretch. But the complexity of those kind of those chandeliers really enticed me to try to do something with their material, their design, but with a very different perspective and a contemporary object.
Yeah, that's incredible. That kind of leads into a question someone asked me to ask you, which is, in your work, do you consider black the absence of light or an instance of all colors mixed together?
That's funny. I am interested in those concepts, and I think both are true depending on what material you're using. Black glass, there really is no such thing as black glass. Black glass is really a dense red, a very dense red. And so, it's these ideas that are already set are true for different kinds of material. Light is light, and paint is paint, and they work in very different ways to get to black. But glass is also a whole other thing. So, I don't have a one specific answer to that, because it's really depending on the situation and the work and the material that really it makes either true or not true. But I sort of do think about both those aspects. And that question and those ideas often come into the work, and for the viewer to kind of figure out, not so much with the chandeliers, but yeah.
Sure. I think something that a lot of people have a question about in terms of all art, but I'd love to know for yours is, do you find your intent or the interpretation of the beholder more important than one or the other? Should people be looking for your intent in your art or be interpreting it for themselves?
Well, I think with most art and also most encounters, if you first bring to it what you know, and perhaps have to put it aside to really get to know what is really in front of you, and perhaps in terms of art, try to kind of consider there may be other things they're thinking about, or in my case, probably thinking about the things that the viewer is thinking about, but also I have my own layers of meaning embedded in it. Sometimes it gets revealed by titles, but yeah, that's kind of how I think about that.
So someone had said that your work is sometimes described as beautiful and sometimes as foreboding. Is your intention one or both of those things, and why?
Yes, well, I'm thrilled that people feel that way, because it is, I'm purposely interested in those two different ideas, and it's really in how it's interpreted by the viewer. I have my own thoughts about it, but often it's very much combined, so there's not one thought. You can think about it one way, but also think about it in another way, because the material, because of the way things are constructed. And the form. So that's really I try to let those questions just lie there and gel for the individual looking at it, and also, of course, if there's something in the vicinity of the object which may or may not give you more kind of ideas about what this thing might be about. So the answer is, it's a bit of everything.
Perfect. Kind of shifting more towards the pieces that Western is receiving. You talked a lot in your talk on Friday about using art to bring important concepts to people's attention. And I was wondering if you can tell me more about the pieces that Western is receiving and what they're supposed to bring to life.
Yeah. Well, there's no supposed to, but as they developed, thoughts emerged about them. And they were both made in very different contexts. The Moth of Peace is related to the title comes from Othello. It's really about Desdemona, who Othello calls her a moth of peace. This is when they were deeply in love, and it was early in the play. Essentially, that line is because she wants to go to Cyprus with him, where there might be some war activity between the Turks and the Venetians, and he's saying, no, you're just too, wonderful, delicate, beautiful. It's not a place for you, essentially, and he calls her a moth of peace. And I just love that image. Of course, Shakespeare is just, I can't write it better. But I hope that piece embodies that feeling of something extremely beautiful, delicate, but solid, as she was. Yeah, that's a lot of what I was thinking about when I did that one. The way the moon's in love with the dark is a line from a series of poems by Pushkin, and I just thought that was kind of a perfect title for it. That project was really about the Afro-Turks, the black community, historic black community in Turkey, who came to Constantinople via the slave trade. And of course, the sultans and the Ottomans were collecting people from all over Europe, and then when they, as slaves or for their armies or what have you, and then when some of those avenues dried up because of the countries not being able to keep that from happening, they turned to Africa, and the Arab slave trade, bringing in slaves to Turkey to become enslaved, and something about the way the moon's in love with the dark is thinking about the combination of the Venetian chandelier and the Ottoman chandelier and the Africans in the middle of all that, and the sort of confluence of these cultures, perhaps in horrific ways, creates this thing of both the two different chandeliers are very different in their form, but somehow they both came together in this objects very seemingly seamlessly, like they belong together in a certain way, but they are definitely very different, culturally specific objects, which I just was just thrilled that they could come together in this way and still exist together but also be very obviously different. And but they are made whole by the blackness, and otherwise they would look extremely odd together. But the black aspect of that is very much in line with the history, as far as I believe, that the Africans were in the mix on both sides in unfortunate ways, but also into the future. Certainly in Venice, there were those who were able to live a life not as slaves, but as workers there in Venice. And so for me, that was also an interesting aspect of kind of the poetry of it, that this in my little universe, the blackness kind of is the glue that brings together these two very different cultures. And I don't find it to be an image that is about clashing cultures, because the Turks and the Venetians at different points were trading with each other, as much as they were having wars at other centuries. But it's also just a matter of history that all these three different elements kind of have come together, and they are what they are. But I'm very pleased with how this came out. You know, I really didn't know if I was going to like the thing or not. I mean, I just had this vision and wanted to put them together, and it's kind of amazing that they can coexist, be different, but still a cohesive object because of the color and there's the symmetry of both of those chandeliers when they come together.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the nature of creating, isn't it? Like, you're not sure if you're going to like it when it's outside of your brain.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It seems like a lot of your work is based on history, which is so interesting then to hear you talk about the future when you were just explaining this. So thank you for that context. So my next question was that a key element of your work seems to be juxtaposition, which you named earlier. And you're often connected with museums and galleries. So how does placing your pieces in a public stairway in a state public university in the far northwest corner of the United States influence the meaning of the work?
Well, I don't know that it does influence the meaning of the work. More here than, I mean, I don't think the work really is from anywhere, you know. It's an artwork. It looks odd in Istanbul, it looks odd in Venice. You know, it's just a very different object that, you know, would never exist. And so it's basically alien wherever it is. But yeah, that's how I think about it. It's very big, so it may be, some people may find it imposing. I think it's just a really wonderful kind of evocation of all these different aspects of history and life and beauty and sadness, and you know, it's just a lot of stuff pushed in there.
I'm so excited to see it built. So now more specifically talking about students, I was wondering if there's anything you hope students feel or get from seeing your art on Western's campus.
Oh, well, I do think that having it not in an art museum on a campus where lots of students come and go, that, let's see, I mean, obviously there's many different ways to look at it, but that's things that are alien, that you have never encountered before, are not necessarily dangerous, like people, you know. There's something you can learn from it, and especially, hopefully, if you're passing by it a lot, you can gain other insights, other thoughts of your own, or in conversation with others, and so it continually fascinates, and that the world is really complex, you know, and so there are going to be things that make you scratch your head, but it doesn't mean they're bad or evil or anything like that. I find in many, for a lot of people, things that are different are scary, and I think the importance of a university is that you get to see all different ways of thinking about things, understand a little more that there is difference, and difference is not bad, and that you can engage with a thought or engage with an image and come away with something that's part that thing and part your own interpretation of it. And hopefully that can go forward into your life and be a way to sort of navigate in your life as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm a student employee in the BU, so I'll be walking past it every single day and thinking about it, I'm sure. Those are all of my more structured questions. I just want to know if there's anything else that you'd like to mention or talk about, especially with including the student body at Western.
Well, I don't know the student body at Western, but I've been on lots of college campuses. I went to college myself. So I just really, I just do hope, and this campus is particularly spectacular because of all the art they have here, that the engagement with art becomes a lifelong experience, because you can grow and learn and understand the world in very different ways, understand yourself in very different ways by the art that you encounter wherever it is, and so I hope that this becomes a part of that. It'll be part of a memory of WWU, but also perhaps a part of a memory of, learning how to see, essentially, as artists say, learning how to see the world, not just as you walk around and see things, but actually sort of think about them, interrogate them, look at the beauty, look at the meaning, and try to kind of make sense of it for yourself. And that's, I think, certainly when you travel, it's a good way to be, just because you'll be around things that are different, and you won't know how to, really digest it. But if you just let it, with art, you let it sit there, you realize if you're thinking about it after you leave, that's a good artwork. And if you come back to it and see something different, or somebody says something and you see something different, that is the most an artist really would want you to do and feel something as well with an artwork. It's because really art, the making of art is a way to communicate with the world, communicate with people you don't know. Just let your thoughts and your feelings and all that come out and be there, manifest in front of you, and there it is, and everyone has to deal with it and think about it. So I'm just hoping that that's kind of what happens with these. One never knows.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for interviewing with us.